Hey friends, it's Roger coming at you with another timely Tuesday, and this week we're going to do something just a little bit different. I had a good lesson all lined up for you, and then I had a conversation with one of my clients last week. It was actually last week Wednesday that I had this conversation, and this client of mine had made a decision and come to a realization that it was one of those things that literally just in the blink of an eye caused her to feel, in her words, like somebody had lifted 1,000-pound weight off of her. And I was so struck by what she did and its simplicity and how much easier and more productive her work and her life has become, that I wanted to kind of preempt our regularly scheduled programming and share this with you. So if you are in a situation where you would love to have some obstacles cleared out for you and feel something like a weight being lifted off of your shoulders, stick around, because I'm going to tell you her story, and then I'm going to tell you what you can do with it that'll get you that same result. So stick with me for a few minutes. Let's go. A client who shall remain nameless to protect the innocent. The short version is that she's in charge of a large group of people who do construction and service work, and she also runs a retail operation for a company here in Wisconsin. So she's got a lot on her plate that has been complicated this year just in general by COVID. She's had a lot of people out, right? Unexpectedly, unpredictably, and that's just created a bunch of obstacles, okay? So she's come through, their busy season is, kind of winding down right now, and she's just handled it like an absolute champ. And then there's this one lingering situation where one of her key people, okay, one of the people who's like really key to the performance of her entire organization, has actually been a little bit, she's been, just because of her family situation, is at higher risk from COVID and some of its complications. And so this individual has been spending a lot of time working from home. So the fact that this person has not been in the office side by side with my client has been a point. It's been a little bit problematic, right? As you probably know, like working remotely, it makes communication a little bit more complicated. There's cultural implications, right? Like you're not part of the, you don't feel quite as much part of the family, and so she's been dealing with some of that, and it's been bugging her a little bit. Like, man, when is my key person going to be coming back, and how are we going to make it work when she gets back? And gosh, I really wish she was back. Well, Here's what my client did, and this literally was something that was just kind of a blink of an eye, little 5-second miracle that happened for her. Is as she was sort of like thinking about next year and right, how are we going to make this place? How are we going to make the place work better? How are we going to make more money? How are we going to, elevate the culture? How are we going to do all the things that we want to do? And she just made a decision. As she was thinking about this key individual and when's she going to come back, and she just went, actually, you know what? Just stop. And let's just accept or realize or decide. I don't know if it was an acceptance or realization or a moment of decision, but one way or another, she wrapped her head around, okay, you know what? They're not coming back. This situation where she's working remotely, let's just assume that it's permanent, that it's quote unquote new normal. And when I talked to her, I talked to her last week Wednesday. She had this conversation with herself on Sunday as she was doing her 2-hour solution. And she goes, Roger, I literally feel like as soon as I made that decision and just went, okay, let's accept this exactly as it is, video from a couple months ago, let's accept this exactly as it is and just assume that this is the way it is. She goes, I literally felt like 1,000 pounds had been lifted off of my shoulders. And I realized, like through the conversation that we had, she and I realized that it wasn't actually the situation that had been weighing her down, right? The situation that this person had to work remotely, that was not what was weighing her down, because the situation didn't actually change. What was weighing my client down was the question marks. You understand? The question marks are the heavy part of the stress. It wasn't actually holding her back very much that this person had to work remotely, but all of the thinking and question marks and maybe this and what if that was consuming an enormous amount of my client's energy. And by simply making an assumption that this quote unquote worst case scenario wasn't going to change, it removed the question marks, right? And her thinking became much clearer. She was able to stop having question marks and go, okay, well, this is how we make this work, given that this situation is stable. It's out of my control, so let's just assume that it doesn't change, and now we can do this, and the pieces of the puzzle just fell into place. And she goes, Roger, I cannot believe how much I've gotten done and how smoothly and how much better my relationships with all of the people that I work with have become, literally just because I removed a question mark and stopped battling reality. Byron Katie says this all the time, that when you argue with reality, you lose. But only 100% of the time. I've always thought that that was funny. And it's really, really true. One of the ways that we tend to argue with reality is by simply kind of trying to weasel around stuff that we just don't like. So how do you apply this? If you need to lift some weight off your shoulders in a similar way, I would guess that some of that is probably coming from there's a situation that you've got, an obstacle that you're dealing with that's not really under your control, and you wish it was different somehow, okay? Do yourself a big favor. Remove the question mark. Take that situation that is fundamentally not under your control and you wish it was different. Take a moment to yourself and just assume that's just the way it is. Assume that it ain't going to change. I ended up doing this in my own business. I didn't realize it, but several months ago in my business, I had a situation that was out of my control that I wished was different. And that is that there wasn't a whole lot of speaking engagements happening, right? I've said this in these videos a number of times. For 20 years, our business has been built upon running around the country and giving talks to groups of people. And for most of this year, both running around the country and groups of people have been kind of shut down. And you know what? That was holding me back. It was out of my control, and I wished it was different. And I noticed in hindsight when I made the decision that, you know what? I don't know when this is going to get better, so let's just assume. I don't know when it's going to change, so let's just assume that it's not. And it's amazing how removing that question mark in that way lifted the weight off of my shoulders similarly. And I was able to move forward much more rapidly. My guess is that you may have something similar. You got something that's out of your control and you wish it was different? Just decide, realize, or accept that it ain't going away. Now you're dealing with reality, and you might be surprised at how quickly the pieces of the puzzle of what to do next to make life awesome anyways start to fall into place. So listen, I hope this story has been helpful to you. If you got questions, reach out. If you want to talk about how we can help you lift that kind of weight off your shoulder, reach out. It's what we love doing. I hope you have an awesome week. I'll see you in 100